Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 2. My name is Eric, and you have just entered into the mind of the craziness of Eric Booth. Sit back and listen, or try to comprehend what the hell I'm talking about. Welcome to the craziness that lives inside my head.
You put a bullet in my heart every time you look at me.
This podcast is going to be on the part 2 of my retirement series. And I'm going to talk about the jobs I had in my young adult life. I left the last podcast of the series in 1969 when I was working as a substitute clerk in the United States Post Office. And I was in my senior year at George Westinghouse. George Westinghouse Vocational Technical High School. That's what it was called in 1969. I graduated in 1970. And in September of 1970, because I was still working part-time at night, going to school, working at night at the post office. Then, when I graduated, I worked that whole summer. And it was a year, I think October made a year that I worked there, and I became a regular clerk. That was 1970 at the United States Post Office. I became a regular clerk. Now, technically, you could say I quit that job, but theoretically, I got fired. President Nixon was the president at the time of the country, and President Nixon gave federal employees New Year's Eve off. But I worked for the post office, so we still had to come in. This is New Year's Eve, 1970. We had to come in, but we didn't have to put in our full day. I always come in early anyway. So I'm sitting there, I'm an hour early waiting for work, because I know what they was doing, they was sending shifts home. If you did your shift, you work your 2 hours, you go home. So I had my whole night planned. My whole night was planned. You know what I mean, on New Year's Eve night, you know what I mean. My whole night was planned. So my shift started, and I'm sitting there hearing the loudspeaker letting all these other shifts go home. So my shift start, I think, around 6 o'clock. So I figure by 8 o'clock I'm out of there. So I start my shift. I'm hearing that the shift before me was told to go home. And I'm sitting at the mailbox, boxing mail. Then I hear, now, and I'm looking at the clock. Oh, it's 2 hours. Now I can go home. Well, the loudspeaker, the announcer on the loudspeaker, the building had announced that my shift, the 6 p.m. shift, had to work their normal 8 hours and a mandatory of 2 hours overtime. I was livid. I had my whole night planned, my whole New Year's Eve night planned. I did not want to be up in no post office boxing no mail to 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning. So anyway, I was just running off with the mouth. I'm yelling at people. What the hell do they think we are, slaves? And then this guy came to me and he said, well, I have all this mail. They had mail piled up to the ceiling. He said, I got all this mail. I got to get this mail now. And I said, well, who was the jackass who sent all the people home to do the mail? I mean, you don't keep that mail up for the last 2 shifts. So the guy looked at me with a smirk on his face. He goes, I am that jackass. And I think you should either quit or resign. You should resign now, as we say. You should resign right now, because I'm sending you up on charges, and you're gonna get fired. And once you get fired, you can never work for the government. So I was gladly, because working for the post office to me, and mind you, at the time I just started going to CCNY, so working at the post office to me wasn't no big deal. So I resigned. And that was in 1970. I resigned. greatness. And then I went out and partied my ass off. And then I woke up the next morning. My mother woke me. Oh, you must have had a good time, you know. And I said, yeah, I quit my job. She said, what? Why you quit your job? I said, because they wouldn't let me party. So I need a job. I told you about my mother and her philosophy. If you want something, you got to work for it. And I was going to City College. I was on what they call a stipend. So I was free tuition. I was on a stipend, but that stipend couldn't keep me in the luxury of the life that I was, used to. So I had to get another job. So I started working for I drove a yellow cab for 2 years. I drove a yellow cab for 2 years. And I only worked, it wasn't one of those jobs which you had to be in. You had to do, I think, one or two, they had shifts. And you call up if you want to do a shift for a week or whatever. So I only call up if I want to work, if I don't have any money after I go through my stipend. If I don't have any money and I want party money. And that was okay. I would come in for the night shift. And I did the yellow cab. I did that for 2 years. Somebody always said, well, anything exciting happened when you did that job? And I would say, yeah, I picked up this old lady with no teeth in downtown Manhattan. She lived in Upper West Side. I drove her to her house on Upper West Side, and that's when she told me she didn't have any money, but she'll give me a blowjob. And that's when I said, no, get out. Get out of my car, you old biddy. Then there was another time, there was two women, I shouldn't say girls, in the back of my car. I picked them up in Midtown, and we're going up Upper West Side again. And I don't know what they was doing in the back seat. Now, mind you, the cabs had a partition. Because cab drivers were getting robbed a lot. And I remember an incident before they put the partition, how one cab driver got stabbed in the back while he was driving and got robbed. So it had a partition and it had a metal plate. So you couldn't do that in the back. If you sit in the back, you couldn't stick a knife in anybody's back. So anyway, these two women were back there. All I know, there was the partition. I could see them back there doing something, whatever they was doing. So anyway, I got them to their destination, and they ran out on me. I said, okay. They ran out on me. I want to keep you in mind, because I'm going to come back to the yellow cab. I drove a yellow cab again in my travels, but I want to remind you in this story, yellow cab drivers, all the tips, the tips were ours, but the fare, we only got 49% of the fare. So if I took somebody and it was $5, I got $2.56 or $2.55, and the rest went to the boss. That's how it was in 1971. Now, what happened with that job is, I shouldn't tell this story, but I'm going to tell you. I was driving a yellow cab. I stopped off at my sister's house, my oldest sister. I stopped at her house. She was partying down, and I said, well, let's go get some more liquor. It was like 3 a.m. in the morning. I was doing the night shift. I had my cab. All I was supposed to do was stop there, wish her happy birthday, and take a drink. But no, I had to take them to Brooklyn to the bootlegger to get more liquor. So they piled into the back of they piled into the cab. I mean, the cab was really packed. I think I had her, another sister, I think 2 more sisters, their children, and some guy. There was some guy in the cab. Don't ask me who it is. And we were packed. I couldn't hardly move to drive. And we're on the East River Drive, and it's a 2-lane. And this guy, this is 3 o'clock in the morning, wouldn't let me pass. He's trying to, every time I go fast, I'm in the right lane. If I go fast, he go fast. If I go slow, he'll slow up too. So he was edging me on for a race. So that's what we did. I raced the guy. We raced down the East River Drive. And before we got to the curve, which is around the United Nations building, before we got to that curve, I couldn't negotiate the curve. I hit the wall. I hit the railing. I flipped the cab over. We skidded on the hood of the cab down to where it got level, and the cab burst into flame. Now, my older sister who was with us, she had her platform shoes on, and she took her platform shoes. She was in this front seat with me, and she kicked the windows out, and that's how we got out of the cab. She kicked the windows out, and we had to open the door for the other people. and we all standing there, and luckily we got out just in time before the cab blew up in flames. You say, wow, that's exciting. Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, I was so high and I was smoking angel dust. I just stood there and looked. I said, oh well. That's all I did. And then the police officer said to us, if it wasn't for the fact that I had too many people in the cab, if it wasn't for that fact and the fact we were all drunk, we probably would have died in the cab. So anyway, next morning I got fired. I got fired from that one too. I got fired from that job, driving a yellow cab. Well. But mind you, like I keep saying, I got fired. And Mama always told me, if you want something, you got to get a job. So now, that happened in, I think, spring of 73. That happened in spring of 73. And then summer came, so I wasn't going to school. I wasn't getting a stipend. I had to make money. Mama wasn't going to give me any money. So what I did was I went and got a factory job, working in a factory. Now, my mother worked in a factory for a long time. She used to tell me about it. So I worked in this factory in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. It was a factory making metal frame doors. So that's what I did. All it was a big machine. You put all the machine does is bent the, how you say, bent the, not the joints, but bent it into a door frame. So you put, I work with this guy. So we held the door, we threw it this way, and the machine come down and bend it. Then we turn it around, machine come down and again bend it, and it turn around and bend it, and that's it. And then we put it on a rack, and they take it someplace else to do something else. So imagine doing that all day. So, and then partying all night. Got to be there 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't think I was a morning person. So I would do that for an hour. You do it for 2 hours. They give you a coffee break. And then you do it for another 2 hours. You go to lunch or whatever. But I couldn't even hold out to the coffee break. So I would have told the guy I had to go to the bathroom. I would go to the bathroom and take a nap. And that's how I got fired from that job. The manager caught me in the store sleeping. That's another job I got fired. But again, I gotta keep going on. Mama said you can't stay in this house unless you got a job. So a few months later, I got a security job with Electric Security. I had that job for 3 years, from 1973 to 1976. So I worked there. It was a night job. I was going to college in the day, so it was a night job. It was, I think I had the 11 o'clock, what they call the midnight shift. So I worked from 11 to 7. And I did that for a while. And then it was in Brooklyn College, the downtown campus. I was security guard there. That's where they had me stationed at. And the thing is, I didn't get along with one of the head teachers. I don't know what he was. All I know, he was running the downtown campus. And him and I didn't get along, and he made a couple of complaints. I mean, yeah, they found liquor bottle in the bathroom. They found liquor bottle. I mean, I was going to places I wasn't supposed to go. They had a student lounge. I fell asleep. I took a nap in the student lounge. Nobody's there from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. Nobody's there. I think around 2 o'clock I go to the student lounge and take a nap with my bottle of liquor. Anyway, it was me. I would say, no, that wasn't me. I'm in the office, in the security office. I did have to make my rounds 3 times a night. I mean, I made sure I got up to make the rounds. So anyway, I didn't get fired, but they shortened my hours. I went from working from 11 to 7, 5 days a week, to just weekends. And when I work weekends, whoever didn't show up for their shift, that's when they'll call me. I only lived like a block away from Brooklyn College, downtown campus at the time. So I would get a phone call, who knows, in the middle of the night, anytime. Well, they can't call me if I'm at school, but anyway, they'll give me a phone call and let me know, well, so-and-so is out sick, come on in, we give you a day's work. So anyway, how did I leave that job? I'm not sure. I don't know if I quit or I got fired. But chances are I got fired. Oh, I know how I left the job. I forgot. I know how I left the job. I gained weight. And that was one of the main um, that person who didn't like me didn't like the fact I was getting fat. So I had to wear I wasn't wearing my uniform. So they came out, because I work nights. I didn't have to wear my uniform. So I had to wear a uniform. And the thing is, they sent me to I think it was the Army and Navy store, to whatever it was, to get the pants. I couldn't fit into the suit. They only went up to size 40 something. And I had a 50-inch waist. They had no uniform for the 50-inch waist. That's how I lost the job. And he said, listen, you got to wear a uniform. I can't put you. So if I could get the pants, he said, you get the pants, but you can't wear the jacket. I had to go to Army Navy store to get the pants, but I couldn't wear the jacket, and I couldn't wear the shirt and the tie. You had to wear the uniform. So that's how I lost. I didn't really, you could say I got fired, but if I lost the weight, he said, come back, try to lose some weight, come back and get in the uniform. We could put you out to work again. Now it was 1976. But meanwhile, in 1974, while I was doing this, so that's why I worked. I worked at Hertz Rent-A-Car in 1974. I mean, I wasn't only working weekends. In 1974 with the Electra, they weren't hiring me to do 5 days work. So Hertz Rent-A-Car was I was a transporter. That was, you had to do 15 shape-ups a month in order to keep your job. And what is a shape-up? Shape-up is when you come in, it was after school, so I came in there, it's a 6 p.m. shift. You go in there, there's just 15 or 25 of us. We pick numbers. Of course, the highest number, well, it goes from 1 to 25. So they need 25. Let's say the 25 people, we pick 25 those numbers. And if they only need like 15 guys to work out of the 25, the first 15 get to work and the rest go home. That was a shape-up job, which I didn't mind. But if I didn't get to work, I just went hung out at the bars. So anyway, I did that. That turned out to be okay. I worked at Hertz Rent-A-Car because 1974, that was the only job I had, because I got, I should say 1976, since I couldn't do the security guard job. So I wound up doing the Hertz job after school, 5 days a week, and I just party on the weekends. And that lasted to 1979. But in between that, I've always had a job, and sometimes I had two jobs. And in between that, it was Christmas, holiday Christmas 1975, and I went and I was working at Hertz. The six. It only worked from 6 to 10, or 6 to 11, 5 days a week at night. But then I need more money. I got my first apartment in 1975, so I went back to the United States Post Office, because they had they hire to do Christmas stuff, Christmas boxing mail, Christmas packages, and they were hiring as part-time. So I went back as a part-timer, and I did work there part-time for the Christmas season, and they let you go sometime in January. But I did, and then I tried to apply for full-time, because I figured, well, this way if I work for the post office again full-time and that night shift, I don't have to do the Hertz. The Hertz thing was only like 4 hours, 5 hours, a night, and sometimes you make good money, sometimes you don't. Well, anyway, I did put in for it, and I was denied. And they gave me a reason why I denied. It had something to do with my record. Now, moving on. Like I said, remember, I still work for Hertz Rent-A-Car. That was the only thing I was doing. It wasn't making that much money. I was still going to City College. And this is now was 1976. The summer 1976, I got a summer job. Mind you, I was on a stipend too. And the stipend didn't help you. You didn't get a stipend in the summer. So I got a summer job in 1976 working for American Foresight Company, selling pots and pans door to door to newly wedded women, or women who are engaged. I don't know where they got the list. They had this big list of all the girls. This was in Brooklyn, the part of Brooklyn that I was born and raised in Brooklyn, Bedford-Stuy, but I've been working in places in Brooklyn I didn't know exist. And I'm trying to think what part of Brooklyn this was. But anyway, It was somewhere not far from Williamsburg. It was in that section next to Williamsburg in Brooklyn. And they had a list of girls, young girls, who was engaged to get married. And I had to go door to door on this list and try to sell them pots and pans. They were stainless steel pots and pans. Non-stick, I think. And that only lasts for the summer. And then, I graduated City College in 1977, February 1977. So now I got my bachelor's degree, and a month later I went and got another selling job at the Equitable Life Insurance Company, selling life insurance door to door. And I did that for 2 years. And they let me go. Mind you, I did that for 2 years. I told you I had my first apartment in 75. Now it's 77, and I was moving into a new apartment in Park Slope. So the first year you work, they give you a salary. So I started in 77, and from 77, I moved December 77 to Park Slope. So by 1978, I worked there a year. And after a year, you have to make a commission. They take you off a salary, and it goes by commission. And then I worked, that's the second year, and they had to let me go because what happened was, I wasn't bringing any revenue. I tried to sell every insurance policy I sold, lapsed out. So when you sell insurance, they give you your commission right up front. And they was losing money on me because they'll give me my commission right up front, and whoever I sold it to was pay their premium for my 6 months, and then they'll let it lapse. So anyway, they told me they had to let me go. Mind you, I was still working at Hertz Rent-A-Car, so I had 2 jobs at the time. I had rent to pay. So anyway, they let me go in 1979. It was January 1979. They let me go. Then Hertz Rent-A-Car did something interesting. It was a unionized job, and the union decided to go on strike. I was in a union. They wanted Hertz to pay us a regular salary. Hertz didn't pay us a regular salary. Hertz didn't give us any benefits, any health benefits, anything. So that's what they was fighting for. They went on strike. Meanwhile, I had rent to pay. I had 2 jobs helping me out, and I called Mom. I said, Mom. She said, I'll help you this time, but you better get a job within 2 months because I'm not going to be paying your rent. My mother paid my rent for 2 months for me. And to make a long story short, because that's another podcast, I couldn't survive, a mom. So I had to give up my apartment. I gave up my apartment, sold all my furniture and everything, and moved out to San Francisco. If you was bored listening to this podcast, I don't blame you. It's quite boring, isn't it? Meanwhile, I had a lot of fun because it was party, 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 party. It was the 70s, disco, party, party, shake them booty, shake them. Ugh. Thank you for listening to the craziness that lives inside my head.
The journey that began in 2018 continues into the 2040s. Dr. Fernandez has found a way to infuse the God particle into the DNA and genes of a hybrid human. All that is left is extracting these DNA cells from the hybrid human.